Good evening, everybody. The rancidly corrupt Department of Justice is, of course, creating chaos of what was once a legal system, turning it upside down in their disgusting effort to get Trump before he gets them on November 5th. If President Trump is elected president again, they know it is over for the Marxist Party that has replaced what was once a loyal opposition Democrat Party. That's gone. All of us, and especially former President Trump, have been more than initiated in the ways of the diabolical Marxist Dems. Only the spineless rhino establishment Republicans are laying back. Only they are collaborating with the Satanist Marxist Biden regime. President Trump is fighting hard, fighting the corrupt Marxist judges and those prosecutors who've taken over what was once a great American legal system. It was the envy of the world. It's now no better than a show court of the Stalinist Soviet Union. President Trump is suing the Marxist Dem activist Judge Juan Merchant under New York's Article 78. It's a bid to block the Marxist outrageous interference in the 2024 presidential election. The Marxists trying to drive Trump out of the 2024 race with criminally false charges brought by the rabidly corrupt Soros-sponsored Marxist prosecutors and those sadist psychopaths who pass for judges in this rancidly rigged joke of a judiciary. President Trump's legal team is now massively outnumbered by the venal Marxists who control the district attorney offices and those courts. They're trying their best to move the president's case out of Manhattan, where they commissioned a poll. That poll showed 61% of the jury pool has already made up their minds and decided that President Trump is guilty. Welcome to New York. Welcome to Manhattan. Unbelievable. Guilty, no matter what. What else can you expect with a corrupt corporate Marxist national media that is running 95% negative coverage against the former president? 95%. Anybody think that's an accident? And speaking of demonic jurists, the Washington Examiner is reporting that special counsel Jack Smith called on the Supreme Court Monday to reject a bid by President Trump to invoke presidential immunity to avoid a trial over an alleged effort to subvert the 2020 election results. Smith claimed the framers never intended such privileges for former presidents, but he forgot to mention they never envisioned either a special counsel, a political party so venal and so committed to the wanton destruction of a president, nor a former president, that they would go to these lengths. Smith is nothing less than a drooling, vicious, unscrupulous jackal who means to stop President Trump's election no matter what. That's his assignment from the corrupt Attorney General Merrick Garland and from the corrupt puppet president, Joe Biden. And there's more nonsense coming out of the Justice Department seemingly almost daily. The other special counsel who utterly failed at his job to hold Biden accountable for his classified document scandal turned to his mental state to suggest he couldn't be convicted, therefore he shouldn't be charged, and therefore there is no culpability. So Robert Hur had it all figured out, didn't he? All because of his absurd description of Biden as an elderly, well-meaning man with a poor memory, not a vicious black heart or a corrupt soul. He refuses to turn over the tapes of interviews with a senile octogenarian, president in name only. Congress has now threatened Garland with contempt of Congress for defying congressional subpoenas. You know, subpoenas like Peter Navarro, President Trump's former advisor, subpoenas that he ignored. But if the Navarro standard were put in place, Merrick Garland himself would have to be going to prison because he has ordered the Department of Justice prosecutors to ignore those congressional subpoenas. Just as Garland did, Trump's former presidential advisor, Peter Navarro, jail awaits him. I can't wait. Well, we know better, but I'm going to still wait. Investigative reporter Julie Kelly reports a SCOTUS briefing on the issue of presidential immunity was filed last night. The very special counsel put forward the risible, ridiculous, laughable claim that the alternate slates of electors signed in the event of a contested election represented a, quote, fraudulent scheme to interfere with an official proceeding. Oh, brother, these are really smart clowns, but clowns they are. And again, their clownish arguments, only the corrupt, like-minded judges would even entertain them for anything more than a passing moment. Jack Smith argued that, quote, acknowledging the use of falsehoods or creation of false documents satisfies an evidence impairment interpretation, end quote. In his mind, maybe, in his dreams, maybe, but not anywhere else. Smith calls for the misapplication of 1502C2, a corporate fraud law about destroying records in court cases, to the J6 defendant's case. Well, Smith further insults Judge Cannon, Eileen Cannon, with his expectation that she would tolerate this kind of chicanery and fraud, which is why Jack Smith and his chorus of Marxist magpies despise her so much, as they do anyone of integrity who defends the Constitution and the rule of law and doesn't buy into his fanciful assertions of legal interpretation. And amid all this is what could be a fight in Congress over the powers of the Department of Justice and the FBI and the lawless intel community. Newly minted, but now tiresomely worn Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, appears ready to pass the 702 warrantless surveillance through Congress, reauthorizing the FISA law despite objections from congressmen like the Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Congressman Jim Jordan is leading the congressional investigations of Joe Biden and much of the Biden family. He joins us this evening, and Congressman Jordan, Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, thank you for being with us here tonight. I know that you are busy as you can be right now. I want to turn first to the issue that before the Congress. There won't be a more important one in all likelihood for some time, and that is the reauthorization of FISA and Section 702. And now we hear the intelligence committees are wanting warrantless wiretap and surveillance. What's going on?
Yeah, well, so remember, FISA is about Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. We're all for surveilling foreigners. We're all for our intel community and FBI, looking at what the bad guys are doing overseas. We're all for that. But inevitably, what gets swept up in this, I call it the haystack of information, is a bunch of Americans. And so what we're saying is, if you're ever going to go search this giant haystack of information, and you're going to use an American citizen's phone number, their email address, you're going to go search an American, you got to go get a warrant. That's how our Constitution works. And to me, that is the most important element in the reform package we're bringing forward. Now, there's a base text bill, Lou, that's got some decent things in it. Requires the FBI to have more audit trails, more accounting, more penalties if you do something wrong in dealing with the FISA court, or with the 702 program. That's all well and good. But it's still the FBI policing themselves. Remember, the same FBI who spied on parents, who said if you're a pro-life Catholic that you're an extremist, who spied on President Trump's campaign, the same FBI who retaliated against whistleblowers, who came and told the Judiciary Committee about all the things that were going on there that weren't supposed to be happening. That's the FBI we're requiring to police themselves. Okay, maybe, that's fine, I'm for all that. But it's not going to work unless you have this warrant requirement, where if they're going to go look at Americans' data, they got to get a warrant, as our Constitution requires. And so that's going to be the big vote this week, is will we win this warrant amendment vote in the House? I think we can. This bill came out of committee with the warrant requirement on it. Now we're being forced to have that pulled out and try to add it back in. That'll be the big vote.
And at the same time, conjoined in all of this is, will the FBI continue to operate without effective oversight by Congress? Is that the trade-off?
Well, we're doing our oversight work. Trust me. Actually, to this very day we had someone from the FBI in for a deposition. So we're continuing to do that, specifically on the whole Bank of America issue, and information they got from the banks relative to people they were investigating. So we're going to continue to do our oversight duty. That is a constitutional duty the legislative branch does of the executive branch. And again, that's why this warrant requirement is so important. You can't just have the executive branch policing themselves. The way it works in our system is you have separate and equal branches of government providing the checks and balances so our liberties are protected. That's what's at stake here. You're going to go do a search. You're using American citizens' identifiers. You got to get a warrant, and the warrant has to be issued by a separate and equal branch of government, the federal courts. Now, we also put exceptions in there. If there's an emergency situation, it's some imminent threat, okay, there's an exception to that. So we think we're being really fair here. But when you think about the FBI, who 278,000 times abused the 702 database, searched it in a way that didn't comply with their rules, we think, hey, maybe we need the warrant requirement here to protect Americans' liberties.
Yeah, there's no maybe in it, as you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm very proud that you are insisting on that warrant and that the FBI follow the Constitution. We also know that the FBI, not flaunting the Constitution, not shredding the Constitution, will be highly irregular, a departure from what has been their conduct over the last 9 years. They went after, as you have already pointed out, a sitting president after having surveilled him while he was a candidate. They conspired with the Democratic National Committee. The list goes on. They are a dirty organization. They are a corrupt organization. The American people know it. The starting point here is, what in the world are we going to do about a corrupt, politically corrupt Department of Justice and FBI? Can anything truly be done? And isn't the least of it, the least that should be done, is to insist upon a warrant by the in those FISA surveillances?
Yeah, of course. At a minimum, I'll tell you what else we shouldn't do. We shouldn't give them $200 million more like they did in that bill 2 weeks ago to fund a new headquarters in Maryland. Amen. For goodness sake. We should require them to search this. Again, this database is a big database of information. And if you're going to go search Americans in there, get a warrant. If you got probable cause, you get a warrant. That's fine. That's how our system works. Go do it. We don't want bad guys doing bad things. We certainly want to protect our country against terrorism and foreign interests. But let's do this the right way when you're dealing with Americans. Let's get the warrant requirement. That is just critical.
Let's talk about the politics of this. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, where is he? He has played Hamlet since the moment he won the speakership. He is absolutely bizarrely unpredictable and unprincipled, in my judgment. Where is he on this? Is he going to support your fight for reform and insistence upon constitutional legislation if it's to be reauthorized?
Look, Mike's a friend of mine. Speaker Johnson's got a tough job we got a slim majority. So, look, I understand all that. But he has indicated he is not going to support our position on this, which is unfortunate because, frankly, when he was on the committee, he did support it. But now he's indicated that he's going to be opposed to the warrant requirement, which, that's at least the indication I've gotten from him and his office. So let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope he's actually going to be either supported would be great, because I think, again, as we've talked about, this is the right thing. This is what's consistent with our Constitution. This is how we protect American liberty. But I think he may be going the other way on this. I still think we can win this thing. We can win this vote and send it to the Senate and hopefully make this part of the law, for goodness sake, as we're going to renew this Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And again, I always point out, it's foreign intelligence surveillance. We're all for that. But when it comes to U.S. persons, when it comes to American citizens, we think you got to have a warrant if you're going to go search their information. And let's hope we win. But I think the indications are Mike is going to be opposed to this, which I hope is not the case. I hope he actually supports it.
Yeah. Well, to be clear, Mike Johnson is not a friend of mine. I revile the man. He just put $200 million down on a piece of ground to build the biggest building in Washington in the federal government as a reward for all of the corruption and the abuse of power that the FBI has conducted over the course of the past 9 years. I find him to be a highly objectionable, at the very nicest I can put it, highly objectionable speaker. I don't even understand why such a person should even be in the Congress of the United States, nor do I understand why the chairs of the intelligence committees in the Congress would be calling for warrantless wiretaps. That means we have enemies of the Constitution sitting in the chairmanships of our intelligence committees and other committees as well, I'm sure. Your thoughts about that?
Well, let me just make one clarification, because there's two parts to FISA, and the part we're talking about now with the warrant requirement is what's called the 702 program. That's different than what the right. spying and the wiretapping and things where you go to the court and the court okays that. So I don't want to get those confused. What we're saying, though, is in this 702 program where Americans get caught up in it and there's information in this giant database, that's where we think you need a warrant now to go search. They would argue that, oh, no, we're picking up information from foreigners and we happen to get Americans. So that information was lawfully collected. It's okay to search that. We're like, no. It's not okay to search that because you're using the American citizen's phone number as the basis for the search, for goodness sake. And that database is getting so big, so many Americans get caught up in it. That is the distinction. Now, the other part of FISA, which has been abused too, in our judgment, not just the 702, 278,000 times right. the FBI didn't follow their rules when they were implementing and doing searches on the 702 program. But we know the abuse that happened in the other FISA. That's where they went to the FISA court, misled the FISA court, got the ability to go spy on President Trump's campaign as the best example. So there are two elements here. We're making reforms to both of them that I think are okay, but without the warrant requirement, I'm not going to support them because that's the fundamental question.
Well, good for you, and I do want to understand how it is we can have chairmen of intelligence committees that are willing to shred the Constitution in the name of their fatuous impression of themselves as powerful chairmen of intelligence committees and others. This is appalling. And as you just correctly pointed out, FISA has been abused by the court itself, by some of the judges themselves. Right now, we have no oversight over that apparatus under this law. Why in the world would we even begin to simply reform it? Why not reject it out of hand and absolutely hold accountable? Because not a single person who abused the FISA law, who the judges who were just wantonly negligent at the very least in their responsibilities, approving surveillance of citizens and what ultimately was an assault on the presidency itself under President Trump. This is beyond the pale. Our government is absolutely bleeding corruption right now.
Only one person was punished in any way. This is Kevin Kleinsmith, who changed a document that was taken to the court. Comey wasn't, Strzok wasn't, Page wasn't, all the people involved. And Andy McCabe, for goodness sake, he got his pension back and all that other stuff. So no one in the end was held to account at all except this one kind of lower level lawyer, Kevin Kleinsmith. And that was just basically a little slap on the wrist he got. So for goodness sake, This is why we got to have more safeguards in place, not only for regular FISA, what I call regular FISA, but also this 702 program.
Is it not a blight on and a stain on Congress and the Senate if they reauthorize this corrupt law that has been absolutely wantonly abused by those agencies, the Department of Justice, the intelligence community, including the National Security Division of the FBI itself? Why would Congress and the Senate allow this stain to be theirs? It's outrageous, Congressman. It's outrageous.
Well, look, I'll just say it. I'll just say it this way, Lou. Without the warrant requirement as part of the legislation when it leaves the House, I will not support the bill. To me, the warrant requirement is the fundamental issue that gives American citizens the best protection, the greatest safeguard to our liberties, is that. And that's why the founders, when they put together the greatest country ever with the greatest constitution, this whole amazing thing we call America, when they put it together, they said you had to have a separate branch of government, okay, the ability of the executive branch to go get your information, to get your papers, to get information about you. You had to have a specified warrant that goes in front of a court and gets okayed by a judge. I mean, that is how it works. So why we wouldn't do that now, I do not know. I hope we can pass this because, again, I think it's in light of the, and this is probably the kicker, you got to view the context. This is an agency, the FBI, who's abused the process time and time again. The Inspector General at the Justice Department highlighted that. Christopher Wray said you can sleep well at night knowing we've got the process fixed. And then we found out from the very next Inspector General report that it was a mess. So with that history, with what they did to President Trump's campaign, with what they did to parents, investigating parents at school board meetings, with all the history, it is just obvious you need this requirement in place. And so without it, I'm not going to support it.
Well, God bless you for that. And I appreciate it. I'll speak only for myself. You are a model for representation in the United States Congress, and God bless you for what you're doing. I have other words for for other chairmen in that House and that Speaker. God help us that we have such pathetic individuals, such weak and cowardly individuals sitting in those positions of power. And yes, I'm talking specifically about those chairmen and the House Speaker. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for being with us. Congressman Jim Jordan, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
And before we, thank you. And before we go to break, all of you out there should know that Mike Lindell has been censored by just about every institution in the country, it seems, every major retailer, every major big box store, shopping channel. And he's getting around that as he does things. He is an entrepreneur and a great one at that. They've all been part of the cancel culture. So Mike Lindell wants to pass savings on directly to you. And to do that, he's created a $25 extravaganza. And when Mike started MyPillow, it was what was called a one problem, one solution product company. Since then, with the help of his wonderful employees, MyPillow now has hundreds of products, and some of them you don't know about. And in order to fix that, Mike is having that $25 extravaganza. For example, 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. Their 6-pack towel sets, $25. And brand new 4-pack dish towels, just $25. For the first time ever, a $25 extravaganza. The premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size, $25. The amazing offer won't last long, so please order now. Just go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use the amazing promo code. I'll spell it out for you, DOBBS, promo code Dobbs. Thank you so much. And coming up next, a horrific video of a service member who refused to be vaccinated, attacked by a group of thugs wearing the uniforms of the United States. A disgrace and disgusting, and every one of them should be in prison at this very moment. But there's a lot more to the story. We'll have that for you coming right up. And the View's not so sunny Hostin rambling on about climate change. She thinks that it may have been why there was recently an eclipse. We remember that. It was just a day ago. Earthquakes a few days ago, and cicadas. That's coming up. Talk about dim bulbs and acting the fools they are on The View. You don't want to miss this one. We're coming right back. Please stay with us. That's straight ahead.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The MyPillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, MyPillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your MyPillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
Welcome back. The World Health Organization is really an agency of the United Nations. It is as hapless and corrupt as the United Nations itself. And besides that, most of its top leaders hail from communist China. But they're working hard to enhance the tyrannical powers of governments that we saw on display during the COVID-19 epidemic. That's according to researcher and journalist James Roguski. The journalist said that the globalist organization is amending its international health regulations to give nations more power to test, quarantine, and harass travelers at will. I say the hell with them. This, as the state of Louisiana has just passed a very smart law and one that is needed in every state in the union. It ends the state's cooperation with the World Health Organization, with the World Economic Forum, with the United Nations itself. But according to Roguski, it wouldn't make a difference in this case. The goal here is to overwhelm people with bureaucratic despotism so they surrender their individual rights. But that's not going to happen. Not again in this country. I don't care what anybody says. In other news, the military is baffled by plummeting recruitment numbers, they say. The Army, the Air Force, Navy, all missing goals again in the fiscal 23. They can't pay people enough to enlist to replace those people leaving the U.S. military. We have the lowest military levels since before World War II. The fewest men and women in uniform since before World War II. It's extraordinary. And it has everything to do with what you're about to see in this video. Watch Senior Airman Lance Castle get dragged out of a cell where he was confined after refusing to accept the COVID-19 vaccine.
Take your blanket off. Go through the lab.
So who's going for the legs?
Are you choosing to be non-compliant?
You get one leg.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant? Get on the floor! Get on the floor! Get on the floor! Let's go! Get on the floor! Get on the floor! Get on the floor! Stop resisting! Where's the handcuff? I need a handcuff right now. Get his arm.
Big tough airman, valiant airman, absolutely disgusting, appalling, sickening to watch. And joining us now is Special Forces combat veteran Dr. Pete Chambers. Dr. Chambers worked as physician, followed orders to provide informed consent for all vaccines given to his patients. But his superiors once told him to disobey military orders and stop giving informed consent to encourage higher levels of vaccine compliance. Dr. Chambers, thanks for being with us. And let's, to move forward this, your reaction, you've got to be just appalled.
Well, those were Air Force security forces with Lance Castle. He's a senior airman and a man of honor, and he took a stand. And his crime was refusing to take the vaccine. Now, they went to court on him, Uniform Code of Military Justice, court-martial. His commander that basically put him in 60 days of quarantine, or locked up prior to the UCMJ court. He fell apart on the stand. It's online. You can listen to it. Look it up. And he fell apart.
Yeah.
And so now what are we dealing with? What we found out is this is the tertiary or third order effect of moral injury that's taken place across the board, which is a Marxist technique. This has been going on for years. Yuri Bezmenov talked about this. This is how you get America to take down from inside. And there's an example of it right there. our own airman attacking another airman because he refused to take a vaccine. They got him on other charges, which were all not guilty, all of them, all 7. So I've been following this case as well as others around the country. There's things that I've got a kid down in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, had a picture of Trump on his phone, and he was Chapter 11. He was kicked out of the military because he had a picture of Trump that said, "Make America Great." It was called hate speech to his drill sergeant. These are the kind of things that we see. It doesn't always make the media, but these are what we're seeing. This is a moral injury. Yes, sir.
Well, a moral injury, I'm looking at the injury right now to my pride. I suspect to yours and lots of others. I can't imagine the United States military tolerating that. And it's disgusting. We can talk about all of the Marxists. I mean, Marxism is pervasive across the federal government. We know that, whether it's CRT, whatever it may be. But it's despicable what we have seen the military become. The General Officer Corps is a disaster. No one wants to talk about it. Very few have the guts to say it. But this military leadership is a disaster. No, you have to compliment young men and women in this country for not going into the U.S. military because they know they can't put up with that. It would be a moral injury for them to do so. No self-respecting
under this leadership, I completely agree with you. The recruiting and retention, recruiting and retention are the lowest since before the Vietnam War. We can't keep people in. Good people won't stay in because they will not do this. They are critical thinkers. Mark Bashaw, a good friend of mine that you referenced, he's a critical thinker, a man of God, and a man that stands up for what is right. And that's what we're seeing across the board. It's an attack upon those people. They're the ones that I want next to me in a foxhole, and I've been in foxholes with them. And I understand. I came in under Ronald Reagan and got out last year out of the Texas National Guard because I did a regulation, because I followed a regulation, but also I followed my oath as a physician to do no harm. And I knew they were doing harm to them. I saw it. I had 6,000 soldiers on that border. I saw it with my own eyes.
Doctor, we appreciate everything that you've done and the way in which you've conducted yourself. But I have to say that this is a national crisis. If this is the U.S. military, and we know what else has happened across, and I'm going to blame leadership because that's exactly the way the military looks at the world from the top down. What they have done to those who have first loved this country enough to volunteer, and to see someone end up in that assault, it makes my blood boil. I can't tell you. I am so disgusted. I don't know what we do, but we better do something. And we've got too many jackasses running around Capitol Hill, the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. House who are doing absolutely nothing. God help us. And God, thank you, God, for Donald Trump right now, because I'm serious. Yeah. I don't know what in the world we'd be talking about if it weren't for him. We appreciate it. Dr. Pete Chambers, come back soon. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good to be here.
Coming up next, the Vatican's new declaration on human dignity has shocked and enraged the Marxist Democrats. Poor babies. They insist on playing God, and they don't like being told what to do by anyone, including God. Plus, the city of San Francisco cracking down, not the way you'd think, or perhaps it is the way you would think, but not this way certainly any of us would have expected. Join us each and every day, 7 days a week, for my podcast, The Great America Show. It's available at LouDobbs.com, wherever you get your podcasts. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Welcome back. The Vatican blasting the atrocity against children known as, quote, gender-affirming surgery in a new Vatican declaration. The document refers to the so-called gender theory as one of what the Vatican calls grave threats to human dignity. And is the Vatican ever correct? The declaration states that God made man and woman a certain way and that efforts to change his creation are attempts to play God. Pope Francis is right. The declaration also follows a number of research papers showing that, well, what we already know, these surgeries and medical services are destroying the lives of vulnerable young people, children in some cases. A recent study by the Mayo Clinic found that the harmful effects of puberty blockers are likely irreversible. And that is horrible news for the children and for their families. But it's, of course, good news for Big Pharma that's making a lot of money. The left seized at the Vatican Declaration. The Marxist Dems hate being told, you shall not be as gods. The Biden White House wasn't too happy about it either. They have some God issues. But the White House stopped just shy of attacking the Catholic Church while reaffirming its support of the trans community there at the White House. Asked about the Biden position, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters it's not Biden's job to, quote, litigate internal church policy. No, it is certainly not. Just take up the subjects of abortion, you name it, more than that, of course. But suddenly, he's not in the God business. He was just a week ago when he said that transgenders are made in God's image. But this week is a different week for the Biden White House. All of this is a surprise to a lot of Americans because of Joe's habit of acting like a tin-pot dictator in his mental state, that is, a sorry mental state. Biden probably thinks he's the Pope for at least the day. Joining us now is Father Frank Pavone. Pavone is chairman and national director of Priests for Life, and we're glad to have you with us, Father, on the show. I've got to first of all ask, were you, in point of fact, as I was, shocked at how strongly the Vatican, the Pope, have come out on the issue of transgenders and transgender affirmations?
Yeah, it was a breath of fresh air. I mean, he has said some strong things in the past. Various Vatican offices have done so. And I think they realize that they can only go so far in muddling and confusing Catholic teachings. There has been a lot of confusion in this papacy, but there comes a point where beyond which they just can't go. And this was a great statement, and one that really does have to be studied and discussed within the church.
Well, within the church, and also, I believe, throughout the country, because for the first time, a major institution, that is the Catholic Church, has come out and said to doctors, to lawyers, to schools, to families and parents of transgenders, this is the reality we face. And it is an ugly reality that is being ignored by the Congress of the United States, by the Senate. The president is simply a cheerleader for the mutilation of children in the name of transgender affirmation. Do you agree?
Yeah, you know, it's the interesting thing here. The Pope put this in the context of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And he did this because he said, look, you know, you claim a new right and people are going to line up for it, practically no matter what it is. And he said, we can't just keep claiming new rights, presenting before people new rights. And he calls this ideological colonization. It's an interesting phrase. He says, this is dangerous. Human rights should be universally acknowledged. They're what civilization has always, in one way or another, bought into. There is a right to life. There is a right to freedom. There are a lot of basic human rights. But this is not one of them. This is something that, a small group of powerful, vocal people in the United States and around the world are latching onto, and they're trying to transform it into a human right. That's where it comes in, as you already mentioned, that he says, hey, this is essentially competing with God. God has already decided what the human being is. And in making us in his own image, he made us male and female. The Pope is saying this is part of God's truth. It's not just spoken, it's written into creation, written into the body. So to invent these new human rights that are just inconsistent with everything that has gone before is something that he says is just outright dangerous. And it's great to hear him say it.
Will there be a sort of a thunderous response in the clergy of the Catholic Church, because so many churches have embraced the transgender, I'll call it a movement, because I think it is exactly that. What will be the reaction within the clergy? Because this would not be the first time that there's been a rupture.
That is a very interesting question, and I think it boils down to something much deeper than this question. If I can bring up an interesting point about these Catholic documents is that they often are issued on dates that the date itself brings significance to the message. So this document was approved on the 25th of March. Now, that's the day that the Catholic Church celebrates the Annunciation. That's the day when God became a human being and the incarnation occurred. That's very significant here. And I think the reaction among the clergy is going to be along this dividing line. Who is preaching Christ and who instead is more caught up in ideology? For the clergy, and there are many of them who are caught up in ideology, and they take part in, gay rights marches and all the rest of these politics, they're not going to be so enthusiastic about this document. But for those who are preaching Christ, they understand something here, that the transgender movement, it's part of this transhumanism. It's part of I'm going to determine who I am, and I'm always going to improve on what I find in creation. And what the church is saying here is we find our fulfillment in Jesus Christ, both in body and in soul, in life and in freedom. Right. You find who you are, not by determining, your gender, but by following Christ. So that's going to be the distinction among the clergy.
So one of the things that it does do is put the Catholic Church on the side of science. It puts the Catholic Church on the side of good government. We have had lousy science because the scientists themselves, the doctors themselves, the American Medical Association will not hold hearings themselves on the issue of transgenders and the proper way to go, the consequences of mutilating the body that is made in God's image. I mean, this is outrageous stuff that we're talking about, and no one has had the guts until now to say this is wrong. This is against God's teachings. This is against the church. And what in the world will follow? And what better follow, in my opinion, and when I say had better follow, if we are to succeed in lifting the society to the level we should be discussing these issues, we've got to have hearings by our scientists and by our doctors and researchers. We've got to have a path forward for those who are, quote unquote, transgender, whatever that means and in whatever application they may infer from it about themselves. But we right now don't have a guidepost until this moment from a major organization, a major institution, the Vatican itself, on the issue of transgenderism. Think about that, Father Pavone, that we have not until this moment had guidance.
It's a very powerful moment because, the Catholic Church has traditionally been very much on the side of science, promoter of the sciences, as well as the arts and of education. The Catholic Church esteems human reason. We believe that faith builds on reason. Reason is the foundation. And therefore, what you're saying is exactly what should follow upon a document like this. And also, you said good government. You know, as we are in a major election year here in our country, the various ministries, including mine, that are saying to believers, hey, you have to vote your values. Saying to Catholics, you need to vote in a Catholic way. Now they've got to take account of a document like this that says, you know what, getting behind a political party or candidate that's going all for this transgender stuff is not the Catholic way. And this document makes that very clear.
And the Catholic charities are obviously on the wrong side of science and the law when they are financing, funding, and facilitating the massive millions of illegal immigrants into this country by the offices of the drug cartels and Joe Biden's White House. We have a long ways to go, Father, still. We appreciate you being with us. As always, great to talk with you. Thanks so much for your insight, Father Frank Pavone. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Turning now to California, San Francisco wants to get tough and do a crackdown now. Not on criminals, but on grocery stores that close because of the criminals in the streets of San Francisco and the theft of all of their goods. You heard right. The geniuses that lead San Francisco to apparently to hell are the same people who want to shut down and sue grocery stores that want to leave their fair city. We'll take that up. City lawmakers want to enable residents to sue those shops, and the proposal would force a business to find a successor or negotiate with residents about finding other options. Can you believe the nonsense they spew out there in San Francisco? Well, coming up, the View's Not So Sunny Hostin rambles on about climate change. She says it may have something to do with the eclipse, the earthquakes, the cicadas. Oh, man. Whew. Idiots. Idiots all. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
And welcome back. Well, jury selection has begun for a trial of Donald Trump. Set to begin next week in New York. There's just one problem. It's about Stormy Daniels and an NDA, and apparently the Dems don't like Donald Trump. There's just one problem. They started a trial and there's no crime. They can't find a crime. I mean, this is what we're talking about right now. This is how low these ignorant Marxist Dems have sunk. There will be, of course, some days of intensive questioning, I suspect, from both sides. But the judge in the case is the man that needs to answer most of the questions. He's Judge Merchant. He's prepared a list of 42 questions that he plans to quiz prospective jurors on. Now, if you want to talk about objectivity and make certain that justice is served, this is not a good list for Judge Merchant. Here are some of my personal favorites conjured up by the ignorant judge. Have you ever attended a rally or a campaign event for Donald Trump? He wants all the jurors to answer that. What will that tell them? Have you ever read or listened to audio of any of the following books or podcasts by Michael Cohen or Mark Pomerantz? If so, please let us know if you've heard or read about them, those books. And one of the copies of the book is entitled Disloyal, a memoir Mea Culpa, the podcast, Revenge, how Donald Trump weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice against his critics. I thought it was the other way around, didn't you? And lastly, the people versus Donald Trump. Well, here's a question. The defendant in this case has written a number of books that you've probably read or maybe you've listened to. Tell us about which ones you have. And the problem is he doesn't mention any of the titles. All of the titles of the anti-Trump books, but not a single title of the pro-Trump books. Some others include, do you follow Trump on social media? What cable news outlets do you watch? So basically, the judge is saying, make sure you hate Donald Trump and you'll be on the jury. Well, turning now to the disgraced ex-Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, somehow she found new employment. The Illinois village of Dalton has voted to hire Lightfoot because she did a bang-up job as mayor of Chicago. They're paying her $400 an hour to investigate their own poor-performing mayor, Tiffany Henyard. Henyard is accusing of misusing taxpayer funds and other corrupt practices. Well, Lori Lightfoot ought to know about all of that, including trying to silence a sexual assault accuser. But is Lori Lightfoot really the right person for the job, the best they could find to investigate all this? Well, one horrible Democratic mayor investigating another horrible Democratic mayor looks a little suspicious, don't you think? Maybe they think it takes a crook to find a crook. I don't know what the thinking is. My guess is they think they can keep it all in the family and keep it quiet as can be. And finally, yesterday's eclipse, millions of us yesterday were able to get a glimpse of the once-in-a-lifetime event. Well, usually a once-in-a-lifetime event. But after the eclipse ended, dozens of social media users were claiming they looked at the eclipse and that left them with sore eyes. Even those who wore glasses claimed to be affected. On The View, this is Sunny Hostin. She's blaming the phenomenon on climate change. Listen to this.
Leaving, we've got a solar eclipse. We've got the earthquake. Ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming. Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in like
No.
100 years.
No.
Two different. Well, this is what I read.
There's two different kinds of cicadas.
Yes, two different times are coming.
The good cicadas and the bad cicadas.
But for the first time in many years.
No, every 17 years this happens.
Well, that's not what I read, but maybe you know better. But
in a way,
say all those things together would maybe lead one to believe that either climate change exists, or something is returning.
Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground.
It happens, and the eclipse. They've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen.
Well, Whoopi Goldberg seemed to be trying to correct the record, but with that lot, I'm telling you, they may be very entertaining to some people, but they, to me, are simply embarrassing to watch or listen, and I can't imagine why anyone would want to hear that nonsense. Cicadas, earthquakes, and the eclipse, of course, it's climate change. It's as good as most of the crap they conjure up. Well, it was a fun show, wasn't it? And that's what they try to do. So there we are. And to take up all of this, we're joined now by one of my very favorite people, and that is none other than Mark Simone, Mr. New York himself. And Mark, it's great to have you with us. Let's start with the idea that Merchant thinks he's so cute, so clever, that he can get away with nonsense like those 42 questions that are all designed to push away the Republicans, all three of them, I guess, in Manhattan, and bring in more of the ideological fevered that is typical of the juries as well as the voters in New York. Your thoughts?
Well, let's clear something up right away. There is nobody anywhere that's ever read a book by Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen didn't read the book by Michael Cohen. People in prison for life don't have time to read a book by Michael Cohen. Just think about it.
You're right.
This prosecutor wants to choke Donald Trump to death with his bare hands. This judge is drooling with hatred of Donald Trump. I mean, if anything called for a change of venue, this would be it. If this doesn't qualify, what would qualify for a change of venue? It's absolutely ridiculous. The judge's daughter, we know, is working hard against Donald Trump, profiting off this trial as she gets a commission of donations. She's using the trial to raise money. It's absolute, total persecution. First of all, nobody can even figure out the charge here. Bragg has yet to name the underlying crime. Signing a non-disclosure happens about 10 million times a year in America. Nobody has ever been prosecuted for one. They're claiming he mislabeled the file. It's in his own filing system. It never left his office. Doesn't matter what he labeled it. It's the most ridiculous case I have ever seen.
I've got to ask you this, and I know that it's just simply not done. But the truth of the matter, it is now overwhelmingly apparent that these prosecutors, every one of them, almost every one of them, is a minority, either African American, Hispanic, you name it. What is the deal with that, and why this isn't an accident? This was a choice by the Biden White House because they're orchestrating all of these prosecutions, these persecutions of Donald Trump. Have you noticed that?
Well, one of the reasons, probably the reason, is they have to go to very blue, very Democratic districts to get the unfair trial they need. So that's one reason. Also, when you're, every one of these is coordinated by the White House. Alvin Bragg, this DA, turned down this case a while back. He didn't think there was a case here. They sent a hitman from the White House, this Colangelo from the Justice Department, who's got it's like a Jack Smith type of vicious prosecutor. He left the big job in the Justice Department to go into this. But
apparently a lot smarter, Mark, a lot smarter than Smith.
Well, that's not a high bar. I think even Michael Cohen could pass that bar. But it's a silly. You'll notice also, when you want this stuff done, this dirty work done, you have to get the dumbest prosecutors in America. Fani Willis, a good example. Alvin Bragg is here in New York. Lets all the criminals loose. He's just crazy. Jack Smith is some sort of bug-eyed weirdo with posing for pictures with a cape on. I mean, this is the biggest ship of fools I've ever seen for prosecutors.
Well, it is. And yet here they are, and they've got judges to match. It's extraordinary. The D.C. Courts are just rancidly, rabidly, politically corrupt. They are committed to the Marxist ideology that drives the entire Democrat leadership in this country now. And there is President Trump once again standing up against George Soros-sponsored prosecutors and idiots, venal, corrupt idiots for judges. Specifically, we begin with, at least on this broadcast, with New York and work our way down to D.C. and then to Fulton County. This is the American people. I don't know what your audience thinks, but I can tell you that my audience is just absolutely disgusted and appalled and cannot wait for November 5th, which is a Christian Visibility Day, of course, as well as Election Day.
Yeah, well, just the average independent voter is starting to really take a look at this, and nobody can figure out the charge. Nobody can figure out what he's charged with here in New York. Nobody can figure out the Georgia charge. You're allowed to call election officials and argue with them. It happens all the time. The Gore campaign admits they did it in Florida. It's done all the time. And again, it's legal to sign a non-disclosure agreement, pay hush money. It's done by corporations every day. Nobody can figure out the crime here.
Yeah.
It's absolutely preposterous. And you're supposed to spin a wheel in New York, randomly choose a judge that way. Both cases, they get the biggest Trump-hating judge on earth. We're supposed to believe that's a coincidence?
No question. Mark, thanks so much, my friend, for being with us.
Thanks.
We always enjoy our talks with you. Mark Simone, all of you out there, you betcha. All of you out there know Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of those box stores and shopping channels the way they once did, but they're selling a lot of product, and they've been part of the cancel culture that failed. Mike Lindell and MyPillow are roaring, and they want to pass on savings directly to you. And Mike is having a $25 extravaganza to introduce you to a huge number of brand new products. When Mike started MyPillow, a one problem, one solution company it was. Well, since then, He and his dedicated employees have invented and brought in hundreds of new products, and you want to know about every one of them, I assure you. And to get the word out, Mike has a $25 extravaganza underway, 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack towels. Those sets are $25. And brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And for the first time ever, those premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size, $25. This amazing Lindell offer won't last long, so order now. Go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use promo code Dobbs. That's D-O-B-B-S, and I think it is an extraordinary promo code myself. Dobbs, again, D-O-B-B-S. Join us each and every day, that's right, 7 days a week for my podcast, The Great America Show, and wherever you get your podcast, also at LouDobbs.com. Thanks for being with us this evening. Join us here tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. Investigative journalist Laurel Loomer joins us to talk about her extensive reporting on Judge Merchant and Merchant's Trump-hating wife and daughter. Oh, what a mess they are, huh? Well, Laurel will be here. Don't want to miss it. The Lindell Report is next, and you certainly don't want to miss that. Mike Lindell next. Thanks for being with us. Good night, and God bless you.